ever since. It's been a long time coming, but I know a change gonna come. Oh, yes it will. It's been too hard living, but I'm afraid to die. 'Cause I don't know what's up there beyond the sky. It's been a long time coming, but I know a change gonna come. Oh, yes it will. I go to the movie and I go downtown. Somebody keep telling me don't hang around. It's been a long time coming, but I know a change gonna come. Oh, yes it will. Then I go to my brother and I say, brother, help me please. But he winds up knocking me back down on my knees. Lord, there've been times that I thought I couldn't last for long, but now I think I'm able to carry on. It's been a long time coming, but I know change gonna come. Oh, yes it will. I said, change gonna.
Welcome back to the Professor Penn podcast. David Penn here. It's episode number 147, Strike. Started out with a classic, Sam Cooke, A Change Gonna Come. Sam Cooke, wow, what a voice. Sam Cooke was a shooting star. I would urge all of you to go check out his body of work. He was the best, and he met a very untimely and violent end very young in his life, which was a tragedy because he was such a great artist. But he left us this gem of protest, this gem about change, this gem about peace. And, I have to tell you, because I'm so wrapped into the news, blessed are the peacemakers, for they shall be called the sons of God. He shall judge between the nations, and shall decide disputes for many peoples. And they shall beat their swords into plowshares, and their spears into pruning hooks. Nation shall not lift up sword against nation, neither shall they learn war any more. When a man's ways please the Lord, he makes even his enemies to be at peace with him. This is what I'm striving for. And I've come to a conclusion about myself that I'm wholly inadequate for the role that I'm seeking. And because I am inadequate and I am self-governing, I have the opportunity to become more adequate. I know that sounds a little bit opaque, but I believe that Um, and, coming out of an ancient tradition, I believe that human beings of all kinds, not just Jewish human beings, but all human beings, have the power, the mission, the opportunity to bring about a change in themselves. As we heard in the song, a change is coming, to bring about a change in themselves inside, which then becomes reflected outside. I was just talking to Tanner. Good morning, Tanner.
Good morning, David.
Of course, we're coming up here tonight. It's the 26th of September, 7:30 p.m. Central Standard Time, but we record early in the morning. We're getting into these conversations, Tanner and I, before we record, which is pushing back our start times. But they're interesting conversations, and Tanner was talking to me about a friend of his who had just, recently had an unfortunate end to a love affair. And of course, this is a friend, so Tanner probably has feelings for him, a bond between men. And he's been trying to urge this friend to work on himself internally so that his external world is more supportive of his well-being. And I think that's the way it works. And I'm glad to hear that. Of course, what we do is we avoid that internal work. We avoid, the self-governance. We avoid the self-governance. I avoid it. If you go back and look at that opening, that beautiful montage of images of sometimes hundreds of thousands of people out protesting. And of course, there's a certain civil rights component to that. But, civil rights, is there any more important civil rights than human well-being when the world's on the verge of nuclear war? Where is the protest? Where are the people? Here we are, we're doing this Royce White campaign for Senate. If you're in Minnesota, please at least vote. At least vote for peace. I mean, we've got an opponent, Amy Klobuchar. She never had a war she didn't vote for. She never had an expenditure she voted against. She never voted to close that border. She's voting consistently with a globalist ideology, which diminishes my well-being and the value of my American citizenship. That's what she does. And she's got a lot of supporters in that because the left sells a very good product that we all have to band together globally to defeat global climate change, that no one country can do it. So we have to have globalism because the world's at risk, and that is caused by human beings, which of course empowers then the governmental structures to take away self-governance and govern people because, people are killing everything. So the left is selling this global climate change issue. It's selling this social equity, equal outcomes, because we have to redress the wrongs of the colonial period, which means everybody has to be the same. That's the only way to fix this. And this makes a lot of sense to young people. Makes a lot of sense. And then, of course, democracy. We have to spread the post-World War II Democrat liberal order, and the cornerstone of that liberal order is the equality of women and a woman's right to reproductive health care. And they sell that, and it's a great product. And we just now, as American citizens, are starting to come up with our own product, which we have to market. And how do we market? We got to get into the streets. I was this past weekend out at the Vikings game with a group of protesters, peace protesters that are supporting Royce White for Senate because Royce is a peace candidate. And if we start to get it down to a very simple issue, human well-being, human slavery. Hey, very simple. We have to let them do their thing. We have to sell our product. Like in the tire business. Bridgestone's selling Bridgestones and Cooper is selling Coopers, and they both have features and benefits. And, there's no point if you're a Bridgestone guy saying the Cooper's crap. That doesn't work. People don't like that. We have to have a better product. We have to have a better outcome when we have to actually work for those outcomes, which means we have to turn over the entire governing body, the entire group of elected officials that are there, these people, I mean, virtually all of them have to go. And we're going to talk about that more and more. So if we could get one senator, just one, and I don't want to hear any more about, oh, I don't like Donald Trump for this, or I don't like Donald Trump for that, or I don't like this guy, because it's got nothing to do with these people's personal lives. It doesn't. That is a illusion. It is a magician's trick. I have a personal life. I haven't lived a pristine personal life, but I have an audience that likes listening to me. We're forming a relationship. All of us fall short. All of us are learning. All of us are experimenting with our self-governance and what it is to meet and to grow relationships with other people and to be, appropriate, to use our free will correctly. We have to learn. It's a learning experience. Man, if everybody knew how to do it coming out of the box, it'd be paradise. It's not. That means we're all on a spiritual journey. And I think Solzhenitsyn in the last episode said something that it really hit me like a brick. He said, the West has given material well-being to its people and at the highest level in human history. And the people are allegedly to be happy at the lowest kind of level of happiness because they are not suffering for material need. Life is pretty easy. And he said two things associated with that. One, it's not good for organisms when it's too easy for them. They don't do well. But more importantly, he said, we're born to die. So our material life must not be the only thing or even the most important thing that we're working on. If our materiality has an end, has a stop time, then our spiritual development must be that which we are most focused upon. And I thought that was brilliant. Just brilliant. It just resonated with me. And I was sitting in my office yesterday and I got a email into the Tire Get Support inbox in my, someone I work with, Carrie, brought me this and it said, this gentleman had called you and had emailed you. And his name is Mitchell and he likes the podcast. He wants to talk with you. I called him and I'm sure he was surprised I called him. And of course, if, 4,000 people, send me emails today, I probably can't call everybody. But I did call him. I remembered him because we had interacted in the live chat, and I knew he was a very intelligent and interesting person to me. And we talked, and we made a relationship. And people are going to say, why do you do this? Because I ask myself why I do this. Because I get a lot of phone calls. I mean, I get hundreds of emails every day. And the reason why I do it is I don't know who the next person is who's going to become my friend or someone who brings some meaningful information to me or someone who maybe I will influence in a positive way. I'm open to whatever comes next. I try, and I know I do it because I'm a human and I fall short, but I try not to be judgmental, particularly prejudgmental. I try to be open because I do believe that there is the search for truth. I do believe that there is a God, and I believe it because I've seen it. So people are going to say, well, you're crazy. Okay, great. Call me crazy. That's cool. But I can't get away from my experience. And if you knew me like I know myself, I'm a hard-driving person with strong reality testing. And I'm not prone to have ecstatic experiences. I'm just not. So um, since I've had it, I can't let myself run away from it for my entire life. Now, I'm going to be very frank. I never ran away all the way, but I ran away most of the way as much of the time that I could because I live here in this physical world. And there's so many things to distract me from the search for truth. but you're watching me. We've got this community, and what this is really about is me being on display, searching for truth, trying to give myself over to serve. And that's what republicanism is. Republicanism is giving over in service to the community of the United States of America, giving over in service to the belief in a creator that grants unalienable rights and defending those rights. Now, I wouldn't have to give myself over if those rights were under being cherished and being taught and being fostered and being grown. I could just enjoy the benefits of the freedom that I was granted by my Creator. But I'm living, and we are all living in a time where our unalienable rights are being threatened by authoritarians, by tyrants, by dictators, by evil. So I feel the calling to give myself over to the process of defending those unalienable rights, because when I'm doing it, I'm defending God being here on the planet. And I believe that what these people are really up to is eliminating the faith in God on the planet, that they believe that their agenda cannot be fully implemented when people can self-govern because they want to govern us. So I reject that, and I'm giving over more and more all the time. I go through these long periods where I'm kind of in a holding pattern, kind of building up the strength. And now I've built up some strength, and I'm going to go to another level, or whatever you'd call it. I don't know if it's levels. And then I'm going to backslide, and then I'm going to fortify myself and go forward. You know, life is not a straight line. That's the progressive idea. The progressives teach us that life is progressively getting better. That's the height of brainwashing. You want to talk about some deep BS? That's some deep BS. Everything works in circles and spirals. You spiral, you go up and you go back down. But the low point is a little bit higher than the previous low point. And you go back up, and that's a little higher than the previous high point. And then you go back down, and you're just spiraling. Everything is spiral. Look in nature. You don't see straight. I mean, everything in nature is a little bit circular. There's a little bit of a curve to it. Something you have to learn. Look at the yin-yang symbol. Look at the yin-yang symbol. One could say that the yin-yang symbol and the cross represent the yin-yang of philosophy. But the cross is really the yin-yang symbol. It's just a different depiction of it. And when you get to that place, you're getting close to the hub of the wheel, because there's many spokes. There's many spokes. And I don't care if you're this thing or that thing or whatever. If you really work your way up in the search for truth, that hub, that's our common humanity.
In the updated version of the document, aggression against Russia by any non-nuclear state, but with the support of a nuclear state, is proposed to be considered as their joint attack on Russia. Russia will also consider the possibility of using nuclear weapons when receiving reliable information about a massive launch of means of aerospace attack and their crossing of our state border. This includes strategic and tactical aircraft, as well as cruise missiles and drones, hypersonic and other delivery vehicles. Russia reserves the right to use nuclear weapons in case of aggression, including if the enemy, using conventional weapons, poses a critical threat.
It is important to note at this point that these are, at this time, proposals to amend Russia's nuclear weapons use doctrine. We heard from Vladimir Putin multiple scenarios in which the rules and regulations governing how Russia can use its nuclear weapons will change. The first scenario is if a non-nuclear power attacks Russia with conventional arms but poses a grave or critical threat to Russia's sovereignty, the Russian leadership will be able to use nuclear weapons to neutralize that threat. The second scenario and how things will change is if that non-nuclear power that is attacking Russia is aided, supplied, abetted by a nuclear power, then that nuclear power will be considered a party to this conflict. So a joint attack on Russia, which will mean Russia will be able to use nuclear weapons both on the non-nuclear power and the nuclear power that it'll consider attacking it. Also, Russia will be able to use, preemptively perhaps use, nuclear weapons if there is verified information, proof that there is an ongoing attack on Russia using aerospace assets, or, for example, a mass launch of drones. Again, I must mention that these are, at this time, are proposals on how Russia's first use of nuclear weapons, its nuclear doctrine, will change. Nevertheless, this is a stark warning to the West, the latest in a slew of such. Previously, Vladimir Putin had come out and said that if advanced Western missiles with great ranges are supplied to Ukraine and used against Russia for strikes deep into Russian territory, then those countries, the United States perhaps, or Great Britain or France, which supply Ukraine with extended range missiles, that they will be complicit in an attack on Russia. Russia has brushed off their arguments that they merely hand these weapons over. Russia says it has evidence, and there is no way that Ukraine can plan, launch, and use these weapons without without NATO troops being involved, without NATO technical staff being involved, without NATO intelligence and NATO satellites being involved. But this comes at a dangerous time, at a time when many Western leaders are saying, ignore Putin and Russia's warnings, supply Ukraine with these missiles, and undoubtedly, even though they won't change anything, undoubtedly, Ukraine, they believe, will be able to resist Russia further. An argument that both military experts and the Russian government have said is in itself senseless.
Well, okay, that's cool. My mother used to call me Peck's little bad boy because I would frequently do things that were, I'm talking about when I was little, like 4 or 5 years old. The garbage can was at the top of the stairs. I throw the garbage down the stairs. You know, a bad boy. I'm being a little bit of a bad boy here. That was a reporter who worked for RT. RT stands for Russia Today. And in our last podcast, Hillary Clinton was talking about, the misinformation associated with Russia Today. I think if I remember correctly, there's been some indictments or some, shutdowns of Russia Today's activities here in the United States. I got this off of X. I think this particular channel is, sketchy. But I use it because, it's information. And there's a lot of propaganda in this information. For example, it says Donetsk Republic, Russia. Nah, that's the Ukraine. They've just now said, nah, that's ours, okay? So there's some brainwashing going on there. And it's really told from the Russian perspective. It's quite threatening. It's highlighting a declaration that Putin has made about a change in the nuclear weapons doctrine of the Russian government, and the Russian Federation is making it quite clear what they might choose to do. They're not saying they're going to do it. They're saying, hey, this is a nuclear response is now on the table if you proceed to allow the Ukrainians to bomb, inside of the country of Russia. So they're drawing a red line, and this reporter is correct. The Western governments are saying, don't listen to him. He's bluffing. Well, bluffing with nuclear weapons. Tanner, how's that sound to you as a father?
I don't want to call a bluff like that.
Good point. All of diplomacy. I think James Baker said, who was the Secretary of State under Ronald Reagan, the number one job of a president or a Secretary of State is to prevent nuclear war. Oh, great. They're doing a great job, aren't they? Anyhow, then they had all those scenes of all those weapons. That was a very threatening piece, meant to threaten. In the meantime, if you take a look at the map, you take a look at the globe, you take a look at Ukraine, and you come on down south out of the Ukraine, and you draw a line, and you end up right in the line of conflict, which is going on in the Middle East. It's the front of the war. It's the same war. And this is what people really don't understand. The Iron Triangle, because it can never be broken, that's why they call it the Iron Triangle Alliance between Iran, China, and Russia. These are the groups that have banded together to fight the globalists. Who are the globalists? That'd be we the people, because we're electing globalists like Amy Klobuchar. And these people have said, no, you're not going to govern us with your post-World War II Democrat liberal order. We reject it. And of course, these people are thinking, gosh, democracy? You are rejecting the highest form of human expression in world history? Oh, you people are dangerous. We're going to have to kill you. Doesn't that sound a little Darwinist? Doesn't that sound like if I'm strong enough to make you my slave, that's good? You know, it's a little Darwinist. In other words, we are not, as Solzhenitsyn said, coming to full grips with other worlds, other forms of consciousness, other understandings of human life. We're not interested as the American people, and particularly our intelligentsia, we're not interested in understanding where these people are coming from. We just say, they're wrong. They're so wrong that listening to their media should, according to Clinton, if you are involved with their media, you need to go to jail. I'm looking at this media. I'm going, yeah, it's threatening. It's pictures of, lots of very capable Russian military assets that could be deployed against me. It's supposed to scare me. Hey, let me give you some. I'm going to give you a blast. I'm really not scared about it. It's easy not to be scared at my age and with my experience. But I have 5 children. They're not prepared for this. They haven't even begun to live their lives. They're not interested in this. I'm not interested in this. There's no benefit to my family from this conflict. I'm seeking peace. And this conflict goes right from Ukraine, right down all the way to Gaza. It's one line of conflict because the Iranians are backing all of these groups in the Middle East, the Houthis, Hamas, and Hezbollah. They're all Iranian. They call them proxies. No, they're Iranian armies. They arm them, they train them, they direct them, they control them, and they are pursuing Iranian foreign policy against Israel. And what is Israel doing? Israel and the United States are joined at the hip. So you're really in the same war here. And boy, in my lifetime, we have never had a line of conflict this big, this deadly, and this out of control. It's really getting out of control. Israeli airstrikes killed at least 492 people in Lebanon since I saw you last. Israel dramatically escalated its military operations in Lebanon this week, launching strikes against residential areas across the south and east of the country, killing hundreds of people. According to Lebanon's health minister, at least 492 people were killed in the Israeli strikes, including 38 children and 58 women, and another 1,645 people were wounded. It is estimated that Israeli warplanes launched 1,100 strikes in Lebanon. They also launched an airstrike in Beirut that targeted a top leader of Hezbollah, Ali Karaki, but he survived. And, he survived to fight another day. This is escalating quite quickly now. And Hezbollah says that this escalation is a new phase of fighting. Sheikh Naim Qassam, the deputy leader of Hezbollah, the number 2 guy, said this past weekend that the Lebanese group is in a, quote, new phase of its fight with Israel following the Israeli escalations. Qassam described the new phase as an, quote, open-ended battle of reckoning. Well, that sounds rather tribal. When you start using the word reckoning, it sounds a little religious to me. A reckoning. And said Hezbollah attacks on Israel won't stop until there's an off-ramp. there's a ceasefire in Gaza. Quote, the Israeli settlers will not return to the north before the Israeli enemy accepts a ceasefire in Gaza. Okay, so with all this escalation, there's a growing effort to get a ceasefire. And here's the story the Israelis are telling we, the people, our government. They're escalating to de-escalate. We've seen this before. We have to ramp up to ramp down. Okay, this has been used many times. Quote, Axios reports, quote, U.S. officials told Axios they recognize Israel's rationale to escalate to de-escalate and agree with it, but stress this is an extremely difficult calibration that could easily go out of control and lead to an all-out war. Well, I don't know how much war they need before they call this all out, because when you're, killing 500 people in airstrikes and wounding 1,600, that's pretty all out, okay? That's called the air war. The U.S. continues to ship weapons to Israel, which really kind of disincentivizes the Israelis from standing down. And it emboldens the Israelis because they're well armed. Let me tell you how emboldened they are. Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu is considering a plan that would result in the ethnic cleansing of Palestinian civilians in northern Gaza. Had you heard that one in the news, Tanner?
No, I didn't.
Do you know what ethnic cleansing is?
Did they just admit genocide?
Well, yeah, no. They're going to evacuate them.
Okay.
Remember that?
That one scene
about the Wannsee conference, and they talked about evacuating the Jews out of Israel, and the German officer stood up and said, I think I just evacuated 20,000 Jews in Riga when I shot them to death. Is that what evacuation means?
Yeah.
Right?
That's what it can mean.
And they're using the word evacuation. Some of this stuff is just so monstrous, it makes me laugh. It's called gallows humor. The report, citing the Israeli broadcaster Khan, said that during a closed-door meeting of the Knesset's Foreign Affairs and Defense Committee, Netanyahu said the plan, quote, makes a lot of sense. Netanyahu added, quote, it is one of the plans being considered, but there are several others. We're committed to dismantling the civilian control of Hamas. What does that mean? When they went in there, they went in to dismantle Hamas's military capability. Hamas is the ruler of the Gaza. Now they're saying Hamas is under the civilian control. It can't be both ways. Either Hamas is a dictatorial group that has taken control and they're evil people, or they were elected by the people. Who's the enemy here? And apparently, the Israeli government is making a transition from Hamas being the enemy to the Palestinian people being the enemy. That's interesting. The ethnic cleansing is known as the General's Plan, since it was drawn up by a retired Israeli general or generals. And here's what here's the plan. It has 4 steps: transferring the civilian population in northern Gaza to south of the Netzarim corridor, blocking all aid and imposing a full siege of northern Gaza and pronouncing it as a closed military zone, preventing deliveries to the area until it is cleansed and the remaining Hamas fighters are defeated by applying intense military pressure and then conducting similar procedures in other areas of the Gaza Strip. So they're right here in the plan. They're saying we're going to start north and work south. I guess the Palestinians are going to just disappear.
I'm more surprised that they're a lot more honest than what the Nazis were when they're in the writing, because this is pretty clear. This isn't just like code wording evacuation.
Yeah, it's
it's laying the cards on the table.
Right, that's what it is. And people know this in the European Union and in the United States, and they realize that a peace agreement, a ceasefire, is necessary. So while this thing is, and this could be what you would call a bluff too. Putin could be, everybody could be bluffing. Kind of like putting your hand on your 6 gun. But I got to tell you, people who really play with guns, somebody puts their hand on their gun, hey, guns are coming out. You don't wait to see what happens. So, this is not in control. This is out of control. The general, his name, who is the leader of this plan, is Eland, General Eland, and his quote is, quote, "The right thing to do is to inform the approximately 300,000 residents who remain in the northern Gaza Strip, the citizen residents, of the following. Not that we are suggesting you leave the northern Gaza Strip, we are ordering you to leave the northern Gaza Strip. In a week," he says, "the entire territory of the northern Gaza Strip will become military territory. And this military territory, as far as we are concerned, no supplies will enter it. That is why 5,000 terrorists who are still in this situation, they can either surrender or starve to death." Oh, that's a nice choice. I bet you they fight to the death. Now, this is not coming out of a void. The tensions, as these tensions ratchet up, more and more elected officials in Israel are stepping up their rhetoric and talking about war. There's a diaspora minister, Amichai Chikli. He's the latest voicing pro-war rhetoric, declaring overnight in comments on X that Lebanon is not really a country in his opinion. It doesn't fit the definition of a state, and this gives Israel every right to invade and seize southern Lebanon. Chikli said that southern Lebanon is essentially under the control of a hostile population. He also added that he believes that neither Syria or Iran count as states and don't merit protection for their status as sovereign nations. This makes me think about something I know, and we've talked about it on the podcast, that there's a change in the population of Israel. Israel was always a small country, small in population. It was settlers, newcomers to the region. And then, strange things happened. We talked about it when the state of Israel was formed. There's the Jews that look like me, pretty light-skinned. I have to say, when I was younger, I spent a lot of time in the sun, and in the sun, I turn very dark. And when I say dark, let me tell you how dark I turn. When I went to college in 1976, it was summertime. You go in August and you get ready for your freshman year. And when I went there, I'd been in the sun all summer. And the leader of the Puerto Rican Students Union came up to me and started speaking to me in Spanish because he thought I was, Hispanic. I get pretty dark. So even, for me, I'm kind of a transitional dude. There's the, very white-skinned, and then there's people that get dark. But then, those people, they came out of Europe. They were Holocaust survivors. They were the Zionists that went into Israel. And then when Israel was formed in 1948, there's another group of Jews that never left the Middle East. And they're dark-skinned year-round. Doesn't matter if they're in the sun or not. They're called Sephardic Jews. The Jews of Europe are called Ashkenazi Jews. Or as I see on X, Ashkenazi Jews. Anyhow, the Sephardic Jews were all over the Middle East. Their diaspora, when the Jews were pushed out of Israel, not long after the time of Christ, some of them went towards Europe, some of them stayed in the Middle East. And the ones that were in the Middle East, that were in Morocco or Iraq or Iran or Egypt or even Chad, when Israel was formed, they were expelled from their countries and they were repatriated into Israel. And they were a small population. But they were religious. The lighter-skinned Jews are really part of the New World Order. They're globalists. They believed in, climate change and social equity and a woman's right to reproductive health care. They had very small families. But these Jews that came in from these Middle Eastern countries, they weren't down with that. They had very big families. Like one family could have 15 kids. 15. And also the religious Jews that then went to Israel, mostly from the United States, They had very big families. So Israel's population has been expanding. And it's crazy because, we always think of it as Jews as a very small population. But in 2035, it's estimated that there will be 25 million Jews living in Israel. Wow. That's a very small country. Very small country. But guess what? There's a lot of territory there that you could expand into. Living space. You don't know that reference, but that was a Nazi reference. Why they needed to, attack other countries and take over their territories because they needed room for the German people to live. Lots of Germans. I'm not saying this is what's happening. I don't know. And I don't want anybody to pin this on me because Israel does have a right to defend itself, and this is a very complex issue. And I can say things as a Jewish person that I don't think other people should be saying. I don't comment much on the black community, okay? I just don't think it's right. But within my own community, we need to ask questions of ourselves. What's going on here? Is this a righteous war? Is this a righteous war? Is this truly a war of self-defense? Is this truly a war for survival? Because if it is, man, on the right day, because I don't want to see any genocides. Because clearly there's genocidal energy here. And of course, what does the U.S. do? We talk peace, but we send troops and military hardware. I was just watching Anthony Blinken on Morning Joe. People don't like watching Morning Joe. I like watching Mika Brzezinski and Joe Scarborough. I like it. Why? I want to know what they're thinking. They tell me what their plans are. They tell me what they're doing. I don't have to look it up. I don't have to make it up. All I have to do is listen to the words that are coming out of their mouth. They're either lying to me or they're telling me the truth, but at least they're giving me some evidence. So please, let's not. We played Hillary Clinton. I was watching in a live chat. People are going, I hate this woman. Yeah, I'm not saying I like her. I want to know what she's thinking. That's why I played the RT out, the extract from Russia Today News, because she said it's a propaganda medium. What is MSNBC? It's a propaganda medium. What is the mainstream media? It's propaganda. Why is our propaganda good and their propaganda bad? Because our culture is the truth and their culture is a myth. And when you believe that, you're going right down genocide lane. And I'm not into genocide. I'm into human well-being. I'm a Republican. I believe in the sovereignty of every citizen. And quite frankly, I want every country in the world to be Republican. I want every country to acknowledge that the individual human being is the sovereign of his own life, that his rights are granted to him by a creator. That's not just an American idea. And that's why they spread this crap out, the Democrat liberal order. I'm going to let you think about that one. I need to think about it more myself. What do? The Pentagon said on Monday that it's sending additional troops to the Middle East after Israel significantly escalated its bombing campaign in Lebanon. Pentagon spokesman Major General Pat Ryder, I like that name, Pat Ryder, he's got a career after his military career in show business or working for the military-industrial complex, whichever comes first. Major General Pat Ryder said, quote, in light of the increased tension in the Middle East, and out of an abundance of caution, we are sending a small number of additional U.S. military personnel forward to augment our forces that are already in the region. Man, I'm going to read that again. This guy's a superstar in the making. Listen to this sentence. This is what you call skill. In light of the increased tension in the Middle East, and out of an abundance of caution, we are sending a small number of additional U.S. military personnel forward to augment our forces that are already in the region. Pat Ryder's a superstar. We're going to hear more from him, I guarantee it. And there's a group of Jews over in the South China Sea. You didn't know they were, they're Taiwanese. Another group of people, they're in a place that they shouldn't ought to be because those were Chinese people that went to Taiwan and brushed aside the local indigenous population. I think they killed 10,000 locals the first day they were there, just to let them know they were around. You know, they're kind of the Jews of the South China Sea. And what are we doing? We're arming them too. The U.S. will send Taiwan $567 million in military aid. And these people got money, but we're going to give them the money. We, the people, we're so generous. We're such good people that even though the Taiwanese are loaded with cash, we're going to give them, out of the goodness of our heart, $567 million of weapons. The Biden administration is preparing to provide Taiwan with $567 million of military aid as the U.S. continues to ignore China's red lines related to the island. Defense News sounds like a propaganda newspaper. Defense News reported on this past Friday the weapons package is in the final stages and will be provided through the Presidential Drawdown Authority. In other words, President Biden can do whatever the hell he wants, which allows the U.S. to ship weapons to other countries directly from U.S. military stockpiles. The military aid will be the largest PDA package that the U.S. has ever provided to Taiwan. Since Washington severed diplomatic relations with Taipei in 1979 as part of the normalization agreement with Beijing, the U.S. has always sold for profit, sold weapons to Taiwan, but never financed the purchases or provided the arms free of charge until now. The Taiwanese got to tell, why are we doing that? Why are we giving the weapons to them for free? Why aren't they buying? Maybe they don't want the weapons. Maybe the Taiwanese are saying, hey, this isn't going to have a good ending. We're going to slow down. Ixnay on the weapon thing. Stop arming us because you're going to get us all killed. And what do? Hey, you know what? Can you turn down $500 million of free shit? Can you do that? Okay. That's who we are. We suck. And why do we suck? Because we the people, and we need to get into the streets and protest for peace. And we need to elect representatives that, regardless of their personal histories, their personal lives, if they're talking peace and they're speaking with sacred honor, we elect them. And we get out of our heads that these other 500 plus jerk-offs that are in the Congress that keep voting for war, keep burying us in debt, and have that border open, we get out of the belief that because we don't know what they do in their personal lives, they're good people. They're just not caught. There's over 500. You tell me that the 500 people there, they didn't have affairs? Yes, they did. That they don't masturbate? Yes, they do. That they didn't let their mothers and fathers down or swear, whatever. It didn't pay their tax, whatever. Went bankrupt. There's over 500 people there. They're not perfect people. But when the system wants to take somebody apart and make them unelectable, like, for example, Donald Trump, they reveal every crap-ass thing he's ever done his whole life going back to when he was working for his dad. And probably a lot of it's true. Okay, great. Now, what does Donald Trump do? Because he's also Peck's little bad boy. I have this in common with him, not at his level, obviously. If you push on him, he'll push right back. You want to say something about him, he'll double it down. The guy is, he's a force of nature. He's not what you would call a typical politician. Well, let's move on and talk a little bit about Donald Trump and trade. Just presuming that we're going to have a President Trump on January 20th of 2025. Under number 3, could you play number 3, Tanner?
Welcome to China in Focus. I'm Tiffany Meyer. Our top story, former President Trump warning Michigan voters about the threat China's electric car industry poses to American car makers. Plus a 200% tariff promise to keep the swing state's pillar industry safe.
If I don't win, you will have no auto industry within 2 to 3 years. It'll all be gone.
The U.S. disrupting a major Chinese hacking group nicknamed Flax Typhoon. And charges against a Chinese military hacker have been unsealed. It's the latest U.S. bust targeting Chinese intelligence gathering. China hit 9 U.S. defense firms with sanctions over U.S. arms sales to Taiwan. How effective are the measures? Former President Trump spotlighting threats posed by China's electric car industry in a Michigan rally Tuesday. In his first public appearance since the apparent second assassination attempt, Trump had a major warning for the swing state.
If I don't win, you will have no auto industry within 2 to 3 years. It'll all be gone. And I know you got a little bit of an increase. It doesn't mean that's the small stuff because it's just a temporary thing. Because you will not have any manufacturing plants. China is going to take over all of your business because of the electric car and because they have the material we don't.
China dominates the EV industry. The country sells almost 60% of the electric cars in the world. China-based company Cattle is the world's largest battery maker for electric vehicles. The U.S. now has over 30 EV battery factories being planned or up and running. Spurred by incentives from President Biden's Inflation Reduction Act, Trump casted doubt on America's position in the race for EV dominance.
What we have is a thing called gasoline. We have gasoline. We have so much gasoline we don't know what to do. They don't have gasoline. So why are we making a product that they dominate? They're going to dominate. You will not have a car industry left, not even a little bit of a car industry.
China was the second largest importer of U.S. petroleum last year. This week, Trump added he would place a 200% tariff on Chinese-made cars coming into the U.S. through Mexico. That's as some fear China is working to evade duties by building cars in Mexico and sending them across the border.
We're going to charge them, I'm telling you right now, I'm putting a 200% tariff on, which means they're unsellable. Unsellable in the United States. And then you wonder why it gets shot at, right? You know, only consequential presidents get shot at.
Trump imposed a 25% tariff to keep Chinese EVs out during his term. President Biden kept that policy and raised the number to 100%, effective later this month. Trump also said he would impose a reciprocal trade tax on Chinese products.
As I said, you got to build plants. You don't build plants here, we're going to put the tariffs on your products coming in from China.
The rapid development of Chinese EVs have alerted bigwigs in the U.S. auto industry. Ford CEO called Chinese EVs, quote, an existential threat after returning from China. Tesla's Elon Musk said the Chinese car makers are the most competitive in the world.
Thank you, Tanner. Thank you very much. This is my mom's with me today, Peck's little bad boy. This is NTD television, New Tang Dynasty. We did something with Russia Today. Russia Today is on the bad list. They're propaganda of the Russian government. Okay, this is NTD. This is the New Tang Dynasty television network. NTD was founded in 2001 by practitioners of Falun Gong, a new Chinese religious movement. The station has a regular focus on the promotion of traditional Chinese culture and Western classical arts and devotes extensive news coverage to Chinese human rights issues, scrutinizing abuses of power by the Chinese Communist Party. I wonder who funds these people. Speaking of propaganda, these guys are on the good list. Why? Because these are Chinese people who have been repressed in China. They didn't plan on ending up in the United States with the U.S.-based media company. These are also the people that own and run the very popular Epoch Times, which many people in the nationalist movement read the Epoch Times. They don't even realize what it is. Have you ever heard of Falun Gong? Okay, Falun Gong. Just a short course on Falun Gong. Falun Gong is traditional Chinese spiritual development. Like if you're a Catholic, thinking of my friend Mitchell, my new friend Mitchell, there's a way you develop your consciousness through the practice of Catholicism. It's the same thing in Judaism, the same thing in every religious tradition, the same thing in every society, like, 33-degree Mason. Hey, you just don't jump in the first day and, hey, you're 33. Of course, unless you're Sir Francis Galton, He was 33 on day one, but that's another story. We've talked about him before. You can go look him up. We'll talk about him again. We're going back to the way back. No, Falun Gong is a religious tradition that is about self-governance. It presumes that there's an unseen world, and the practice is to bring the practitioner into connection with that unseen world. It is a method of developing profound self-governance. If you watch a martial arts movie and you see these people do this incredible stuff, because some of it is, frankly, quite incredible, there's a physical dimension, but it is infused with a spiritual dimension. It's mind, body, and spirit. It's no different on the football field on Sunday. You see what those guys are doing? It's physical, but there's a lot of spiritual dimension to doing that kind of high-level athletics. Falun Gong is a practice that individual Chinese started to do in China decades ago to develop self-governance. And guess what? The Chinese government said, the Communist Party said, we're not going to have any of that self-governance stuff here. Stop it. You are practicing an illusion. There's no unseen world. We're Marxists. We're materialists. Everything is about the cash. And they said, no. It's not about the cash. It's about the unseen world. And if you follow this procedure, you, my fellow Chinese citizen, will be free of this materialist illusion, and you will have a connection with a spiritual reality that right now you don't know exists. Would you like to join Falun Gong? Yes, I would. Okay, and then people would go out in the parks and practice. And first there was two people. First there was one. There's actually a founder. His name is, I'm going to find his name. It was in here. I don't remember it. It was founded by Li Hongji. Li Hongji founded Falun Gong. He's still alive. He's a grandmaster. And he started it himself. First there was him, then was one other guy, then there was three people, and suddenly there was millions of people. Millions. So the Chinese government suppressed this, and Li and many of his followers fled to the United States. And there is a kind of like a government in absentia here of Chinese that want to change China from being a communist country to a republican form of government. And they believe in a creator that grants unalienable rights, and they have a way of practicing the connection that can be built between the citizen and that creator. And they own this New Tang Dynasty, and they chose that name because they thought the Tang Dynasty was a very great high point in Chinese spiritual development. So I'm just playing this to let you know there's Russia Today on the bad list, and there's New Tang Dynasty on the good list, and I guess it's who's funding you, right? Anyhow, what Trump is threatening and what he's saying he's going to do, and he'll do it, he's going to go big on protecting our domestic industries and our domestic workers. And that really is there are many elements to what they call Trumpism. I do think that if he is to be reelected, he will take a meat cleaver to the administrative state. I think that's part of the deal. I think that there will be a great effort to use trade policy in a way that enhances the well-being of the American citizens in terms of work. In other words, work involves a spiritual dimension. Even Tanner coming in here every day. He's always on time. He does good work. His work is, there's a physical dimension to his work, but there's a spiritual dimension, about wanting to do a good job. I mean, seeking a higher level of performance. He has those attributes. But when he goes down to Walmart and buys something made in China, that's just buying the cheapest thing he can get his hands on. And he does it. He does it. Well, President Trump is saying that's not the end all and be all. Materialism. Remember I said that Solzhenitsyn's criticism of the West was that it becomes so focused on the distribution of material well-being, that we were becoming spiritually weak. Well, work is one of the ways people become spiritually strong. Maybe that's why we have a growing call for universal basic income. So people just get money to do nothing. Just be a consumer. Just consume, get a chronic disease, and die. Your inventory, kind of like the Matrix. I'm going to play some of the Matrix again next week, and I'm going to have two scenes. It'll be a surprise. Anyhow, Trump is going to use this trade policy to protect jobs here in America. What the Trumpist believes, or the nationalist believes, is that a job is more important than a cheap good. Now, if you listen to what the left is saying, oh, Trump's going to cause all this inflation, all this hardship on the American citizens. And that's to some extent true, not to the way they fence it, but it is to some extent true. President Trump just threatened the agricultural equipment maker John Deere with a 200% tariff if it moves production to Mexico. And, Mexico, that's the USMCA, that's the United States, Canada, Mexico Free Trade Agreement that Robert Lighthizer negotiated with Mexico and Canada under the Trump presidency. And what President Trump is recognizing is, whoa, that didn't go quite the way we thought it was going to go. So, if Trump comes in, that free trade agreement is subject to renegotiation every 5 years. He's going to renegotiate. What Trump wants is Americans to work. What Trump believes is if Americans are working, they're paying taxes. If they're paying taxes, we have a bigger tax revenue. We can pay the debt down. If we build our things here, we're not dependent on other countries. We actually have a nation of people that work, a nation of people that are striving. The kind of world I grew up in the 60s and 70s. Everybody worked. I worked at the Ford plant in St. Paul. We had the opportunity to work. We had jobs. Well, what is neoliberal trade policy? We've talked about it. These people that are running the show in the globalist camp, which in our country is the Democrat Party, they are the product of an educational system which is controlled by Marxists. Marxists believe in one world governance. Workers of the world unite, right? They believe in peace. They want peace. That even if a person is warlike, someplace in themselves, they see the value of peace. Nobody wants to get up every day and fight. Peace is something that humanity is striving for. And what the globalist believes is that if you have equity, this goes into the concept of sustainability, which when I was growing up was, put your banana peels out for recycling, right? Now sustainability has nothing to do with recycling. It's about having equitable outcomes where every citizen of the world has the same outcome. And what they tell us what it is. You'll be happy and you'll own nothing, but we'll all be the same. And if we're all the same, there's nothing to fight about. The Marxist believes everything is about money. So if I have more money than you, you're going to rob me. That's their view of human nature. They don't believe in self-governance. They don't believe that you have a relationship with the Creator and that Creator says, thou shalt not steal. They don't believe in that. They believe that I have to have nothing and you have to have nothing, and therefore there's not going to be any stealing because there's nothing to steal. That's their philosophy. That's not Republican. That's Marxism. I don't care if you're a Democrat. I don't care if you're progressive, a liberal, a socialist, a communist. It's all the same philosophy, and it's all heading in the same direction. There can't be difference. There cannot be difference because difference causes conflict. I guess if you remove self-governance from the equation, there's some truth to that. But I don't want to covet my neighbor's goods because that's a commandment that I believe in. For example, let me just take a second and please humor me because I need your support. I'm asking you, a very nice lady, Catherine, came in the office yesterday, associate now of mine, and she said, I want to buy all my Christmas presents from Free People Radio store. And she spent $1,100 buying things at the Free People Radio store. Thank you, Catherine. That's cool. I didn't know she was going to do that. I didn't ask her to do it, but it reminds me to ask you. Christmas is right around the corner. You got to buy gifts from somebody. We're trying to grow our programming. We're trying to get the 2 full-time producers. We want to do more work here, and we can only do it. And I don't want to ask for it. I really don't. Most episodes I forget because I'm really focused on the work. But, it's my duty to try to build this platform and to grow this community because we're a political action community. And please invest in it a little bit. And you got to buy tires, right? I mean, not everybody that's listening to me owns a car. And that's cool. If you don't own a car, I'm not trying to say you should. But most of us do, which means every 4 years, you're buying a set of tires. Or you got a family, you got maybe 2 or 3 cars in the driveway, which means you're buying tires almost every year. Or your friends are buying tires. TireGet.com, TireGet.com. Because of this audience, it's been refreshed. We're on to version 2.0. There is 11 different brands there now. 11. Major brands that you've heard of, the top, most expensive tires that you can buy, many of them probably made in the United States, and a full selection of low-cost tires because with inflation, hey, the spirit is willing, but the flesh might be weak. And I don't want to judge people. So we've got everything. We've got a full pallet of supply, and we have 35,000 installers now programmed into our system where you can go online, pick the tire that you want, and have that tire delivered to the installer 5 minutes from your house. You make an appointment online. You show up at the appointed time. The tires are there. You're in and out in a half hour. It's the easiest way to buy tires in the business. The price is right. I guarantee it. I know the business. I know the price is right. The price actually is better than what you're going to get. Not a lot better because, it's a tire business. It's a commodity business. But the price will be somewhat better than you're going to buy in most circumstances. The service will be good. It'll be easier than almost all circumstances because you don't have to go to the store. You don't have to wait in line. You don't have to deal with someone. You just have to call me and I'll help you. I'll make sure you get exactly what you need. And that, my friends, will be the best customer service you can get in the tire business. So thanks for thinking of TireGet. And please don't be shy to send us an email and I'll get back to you myself because this is part of building this community. This is part of building the patriot economy. We have to support, and I do it myself in my own life. I've got to support the businesses that are supporting this movement. Think about the New World Order. Think of the businesses they got that are supporting them. That'd be like all the big successful businesses are all in on it. I was taught this same, well, I'm not going to get anybody busted, but let me just cover it up. The same, along this same theme, I was talking to a political activist that told me about one of the major medical manufacturers in the world, Medtronic, which has got a lot of manufacturing here in Minnesota, made a donation to the World Economic Forum and the UN for $68 million. 60. Do you know what I could do for the movement with $68 million? Unbelievable. We're not going to get $68 million from Medtronic, but we would like to make a couple of bucks off of your next tire purchase, or please go to the Free People store. And if I'm trying to express this in a way that really reflects my heart, we want to expand what we're doing, and we're a community, and I'm coming to you. So thank you for listening. All right, so Trump is talking about tariffs, which is really about international trade. If it's inside the country, we have a universal commercial code, which is, comes right out of our Constitution. Commerce is one of the big benefits of having 50 states that are in a union, United States of America, United States. One of the things that unites us is we have a uniform commercial code. That's not true when it comes to international trade. And President Trump is signaling that he's going to use tariff tax policy to protect American workers and to grow American manufacturing. And I personally think that's great. And I'm a person who has been all over the world doing international trade. So, in a sense, I'm working against my own economic interests by being so passionate about this, about the nationalist movement. And that doesn't mean there couldn't be international trade or that there shouldn't be international trade. I'm talking about these people that went to these Marxist schools and they believe in everybody has the same thing. So my entire adult life, we've been draining out the advantage of the United States of America, which was gained in the post-World War II period. Because remember, in World War II, Russia was destroyed, Japan was destroyed, England was destroyed. You know, all of our competitors, China was destroyed. These places were devastated. There was nothing standing. I mean, you go look at the pictures of Germany after World War II or China after World War II. Every single building was destroyed. It looks like Gaza City. And, you know, the United States had the only intact manufacturing base. We ran a trade surplus until 1976. So from 1946 to 1976, trade worked really well for us. But then we talk about what was going on in our universities. We had the GI Bill. Our universities went from being very conservative to being very leftist over that same period of time. And these leftist intellectuals that now dominate our universities believe in social equity. They're Marxists. So they looked at the great advantages of that we had in the United States of America and said, well, that's not going to work. That's not sustainable. And they come up with all these these people are smart. They really brainwashed these students who are now in government. And so when these bills come up and they're free trade bills and, for example, Hillary Clinton is supporting the free trade or whoever the politician, they say, this is going to be about helping Mexico or helping China. It's going to help us have a more peaceful world. These people knew it was going to cost you your job. They knew it. They knew it. But they believed that if you lost your job and we never had a nuclear war, that was going to be great. Peace was more important than we could retrain you to do something else. Become a harpist, a flute player, like Nancy Pelosi said. Learn how to play the flute instead of having a job. You know, she actually said that. That's another one I should go find and play. That's a striking one. Anyhow, my point is this. They meant well, and the path to hell is paved with good intentions. It didn't work. There's no cessation of violence. There's no world kumbaya. People are still fighting and killing like they always have, and it's actually getting out of control. But now we're weak. So we've been weakened, and we still have the same problems. Because man cannot bring about peace. Man to man is so unjust. Hey, people, we don't know who to trust. It's a line from a Bob Marley song. Only through republicanism, only through self-governance can we address these issues. They tried a material approach. It didn't work. We're going to put everybody on the payroll. We're going to send $567 million of weapons to Taiwan so they do what we want. We want them to do what we want them to do. We're going to send $1.3 billion to Egypt. We're just going to give it to them. We got everybody on the payroll. And who's paying for it? I am. You are. And what's the result? We're getting less and less well and poorer, and the world's still going to hell in a handbasket. When do we say that this experiment, which probably was started with some good intention, is a complete and abject failure? And go out into the streets with peace signs, millions of us, and demand change. And until we do that, well, just keep watching Pornhub and smoking dope. And when the mushroom cloud comes in the distance and you know you're going to die of radiation, hey, cold turkey, baby. What's going on? Strike. Strike. Today's episode is about strike.
Let's talk about unions for a moment. One thing we do not need is more labor unions in South Carolina. We've gotten where we are without them, and we do not need them now. We are a right-to-work state. We have the lowest union membership in the country. We have worked hard and carefully through education, training, and business recruitment to earn our record prosperity, and we will continue to preserve it and enhance it. However, our prosperity and that of generations of South Carolinians to come face a clear and present danger from the big labor unions. They have crippled and distorted the progress and prosperity of industries and cities in other states. You are familiar with the Rust Belt. It has taken years, but they've managed to do it. And now their membership is at an all-time low and failing. So now they're looking at us and other booming southeastern states, none of which want or need labor unions. In 2021, the International Longshoremen's Association sued the maritime shipping carriers for calling on the Port of Charleston's state-of-the-art Leatherman terminal. Over the past 2.5 years, what started as a secondary boycott to force the State Ports Authority to cede long-held state jobs to union labor has devolved into a broader threat to our current and future prosperity. The cranes at that terminal and others are run by state employees. They cost over $10 million each, and it takes years to learn how to run them. That's why we have our people, our state employees, running those cranes. Secondary boycotts are illegal. The ILA's secondary boycott was initially rejected, but later resurrected by President Biden's appointees on the National Labor Relations Board. We have taken the fight all the way to the United States Supreme Court, which I believe will understand the dire implications of this conduct, uphold the law, and rule in our favor. Our aerospace, vehicle, and tire manufacturers are no longer the sole targets for labor organizers. No. Our thriving hospitality and tourism industry along our coast now finds itself a target too. It seems that no business or employee in South Carolina is safe from the disingenuous campaigns and destructive impacts of union infiltration. No one should bargain their prosperity under threats of union boycotts or coercive pressure campaigns. We will not let our state's economy suffer or become collateral damage as labor unions seek to consume new jobs and conscript new dues-paying members. And we will not allow the Biden administration's vigorous pro-union policies to chip away at South Carolina's sovereign interests. We will fight. Ladies and gentlemen, we will fight all the way to the gates of hell, and we will win this battle.
Well, that's the governor of South Carolina, Governor McMaster, earlier this year, fighting back against the unionization of his state. I'm heading someplace with this. We're on the verge of an October surprise. On October 1st, the ILA, the largest maritime workers union in North America, representing over 85,000 longshoremen on the East and Gulf coasts, is going to go on strike. And I'm going to tell you, this is a big deal. It's a big deal. There hasn't been a strike like this since 1977. And it's personal. Let me show you how personal it is. Can you please play number 5?
Sisters and brothers of the ILA, I am disgusted to hear the comment South Carolina Governor Henry McMaster made in his State of the State address in late January, attacking labor union and ILA in particular. Who the hell does he think he is? He is a disgrace to be representing the citizens of South Carolina, especially my members from the ILA living and working there. His attacks on the ILA will not be ignored. ILA members in the Port of Charleston are among the best compensated workers in the state of South Carolina. And that burns the hell out of the governor. He sits in his all-white private country club, surrounded by his cronies, saying he'll go to the gates of hell to keep unions out. Well, let me tell you, he's gonna go to hell. That's where he's heading. Does he realize what he's saying? Does he realize that he says he hates unions? Well, I can bet you the clothes that he wears on his back and the furniture in his house and the car he drives is all done by union labor. Absolutely. In the port of Charleston, everything comes off a ship and keeps that state running, especially during the pandemic when everybody stood home and worked from their home. Not my longshoremen. They went to work every single day and broke their backs to keep that state, South Carolina, alive and moving. I welcome all the unions in the United States to go into South Carolina, start organizing, organize the warehouses, organize the trucking, organize the companies that are not organized. Let's teach him a lesson. Does he realize that this world, this United States, the unions is what made it? The cities in New York, Detroit, Chicago were all built by union construction workers. There's something wrong with this man. How the hell did he ever become governor? I don't know. He's a leftover from the 30s and 40s. Guaranteed he's got a hood in the closet. He sounds like it. It's a shame that he's a governor of this state. He's a white supremacist. He doesn't realize that God made all men and women equal. He doesn't realize that. The ILA's never backed down from a fight, and we are ready to take this governor on. The ILA is a target of McMaster's anger because the ILA and his local unions have a long and proud history of fighting for labor rights and the civil rights in South Carolina. The ILA has earned respect of the Charleston community. From its earliest days, the mostly black longshoremen's union, local in Charleston, ILA Local 1422, has enjoyed the relationship with local politics, business, and community leaders. Governor McMaster, your ugly words and the threats have inspired the ILA. You will feel our power and the power of the worldwide labor solidarity. We will expose you for what you are, anti-worker and an anti-union. We'll send a wave of protest marches from Charleston to the State House. Governor McMaster, you are nothing but a redneck. You heard me, a redneck. I don't even know how you became a governor. You don't belong in today's world. You would never make it in my neighborhood, Queens, Woodside. They would eat you up in 10 minutes, the way you speak. You should be a disgrace to everything that you stand for. I am furious at you, the way you talk about my union and other unions. Take a good look around this world. On the ships, it's all union, the people that drive those ships, the people that unload those ships, the people that drive the containers, the Teamster Union, the construction workers that build these cities. You brag about you only got 2% union in your state. That's a disgrace to you because you don't want to pay people a fair wage. You want to make all the money for yourself. That's what's wrong. And when somebody does something wrong, you want to fire them because you don't want a unionaire who protects the working men of this world and the women of this world. You belong in a different generation. This is today's world. And like I said before, God made everybody equal, men and women. You don't accept that. I'd love to talk to you personally, face to face. You should be praising the hard-working ILA longshore workforce at the Port of Charleston for their contribution to the South Carolina economy. We will make sure the country and the world knows that the ILA will always fight for its members and for their jobs.
Wow. You started laughing when the hood thing came out, didn't you?
Yeah, that was funny.
This guy's off the chain, right? So we got a failure to communicate. If you go back to one of my favorite movies, another movie I'll have to bring forward someday, these two do not like each other. The ports of this country, and I do import tires, so I know a lot about this subject. First of all, the ports. If you're an entrepreneur like me, the ports are a really rough deal. The ports run their own program, and there's no negotiating with the ports. You're looking at big business here now. We live in an economy that is import dependent. The volume of the trade that comes in through these ports is probably beyond most people's. You just don't think about it. I mean, you just go down to Walgreens and you buy something off the shelf there, and you don't recognize it came in on a container ship. Our domestic manufacturing is really at a low ebb. We are dependent. So there's a thing in politics called the October surprise. What could happen between now and the election? Well, this port strike is a big deal. A big deal. The total trade that comes through the ports that are going to strike is $2.12 trillion annually. Wow, that's crazy. The work stoppage would involve up to 45,000 workers that account for nearly 60% of U.S. shipping traffic, including stuff that I use for TireGet.com. Let me give you an idea of what they're talking about here. There's a union. There's two port unions. One is the ILA, which this Daggett represents. This man I just played his short piece. And they represent about 85,000 longshoremen in various locations. The average pay for an International Longshoremen Association's member varies by position and ranges between $20 to $55 per hour. The highest paid position is a longshoreman with an estimated average salary of $52,302 per year. And he's arguing with this South Carolina governor. And this is all the East Coast ports starting up in Boston and coming all the way to Houston, the East and Gulf Coast ports. On the West Coast, because South Carolina is not a leftist institution. It's still what it is. Texas is what it is. They're not where California is today, but in California, where there's a different union, and that union is called the ILWU, the International Longshoremen Workers Union. Listen to the difference. In the East Coast, the average longshoreman makes $52,000 a year. For the same work in California, what do you think they get paid, Tanner? You want to venture a guess?
I don't know. I'd say 60 to 70.
Try $218,231 a year.
Oh, wow.
A foreman out there, a foreman longshoreman makes $331,000 a year.
Wow.
So this is what you call the collaboration of globalist governance and the unions. But these unions, see, this is interesting, right? There's only one port of Los Angeles. There's no competition. I mean, there's competition, but not really, because you want to bring the goods in close to where they're going. So these people have figured out that on this giant import trade, they're going to score. They're going to score big time. And if they don't get what they want, they just sit down on their hands and go, we're not afraid to strike. And then guess what? You're going to go to the store about the middle of October, just before the election, and the shelves will be empty. And that is a real struggle for the Democrat Party. Because on the one hand, President Biden could force these people to work. There's a law called Taft-Hartley, and he could demand an 80-day cooling off period, which would force these people to work, but that would piss off the union supporters of the Democrat Party. And on the other hand, If he lets them strike, the people that are just going down to the store and can't buy things, every day they strike, that's a week disruption to international trade. If they stay out for a month, wow, that's 30 weeks of chaos and inflation. They're already talking about jacking up the rates for a container to come in from Asia to $20,000 a container. Because guess what? Everything's going to have to come through LA. It's going to be a disaster if this actually happens. But then you got to look at it. There's so many ways to look at this. The unions, he referenced New York, Detroit, Chicago. Look at the shape these cities are in. These cities are disasters. They're hellholes. They really are. We know that. And why are they hellholes? Because the Republican Party abandoned these cities. They abandoned these cities. It will only be when we reestablish a Republican government. Remember what he said, Daggett? God made all people equal. The governor doesn't know that. God created all men equal. Okay. As babies. But you think God is going to reward a Satanist the same he's going to reward a believer? Is that the way things work? I mean, if you believe in God, there has to be some reason to follow the rules. People have different choices that they make. And obviously we have great differences in our skills. No, that's not what really it means, Mr. Daggett. It means in comparison to infinity, hey, we're all pretty limited, right? You know, if one guy like Royce is 6'8", I mean, that's kind of an advantage, right? But in reference to his mortality, you know, when he dies, God forbid and let it be many years from now, when he dies the same as I do. So in reference to our limited human nature, in comparison to infinite, yes, we're all the same. We're all subject to disease. We're all subject to death. We all decay. All those things are true. But we do have differences, and this goes back into the education, the idea of equity. We all have to, but these people don't want to be. Hey, Tanner, are you making $331,668 as a foreman on the Longshoremen's Union in L.A.? You're not, are you?
No.
You're thinking maybe you should go out there, aren't you? Pretty good job, right?
Yeah.
The problem with it is the foreman's son is going to get that job. Okay, this thing is corrupt. This is not simple. It is also not correct that a longshoreman working in Charleston makes $50,000 and a longshoreman in LA makes $200,000. There's so much corruption and just things that got to be dealt with. And look at what the unions have done in association with the Democrat Party. I mean, they're proud that they're union, and I'm not anti-union. But why do the unions have to be godless? And why is it all about the money? And why are the cities that they built, and why are the cities where they're ensconced destroyed? I mean, what is going on here? We have to sort this out. But I really just wanted to talk about an October surprise. This is a big deal if these ports close down. It's big for my company. A lot of small businesses won't survive. If they have a month strike, a lot of people can go bankrupt. No product, can't sell anything. The overhead doesn't go away when there's no product to buy and sell. And this October surprise thing, man, there's a lot of October surprises. And it always benefits the incumbent party. If you're in power and you're in the White House and there's conflict, like, for example, in 1980, there was hostages in Iran, something that people probably don't remember. Iran had taken hostages. And President Reagan, at that time, he was trying to become president. He was afraid that Jimmy Carter would cut a deal with the Iranians to bring the hostages home just before the election. And then Jimmy Carter would win the election. So there's allegations that are unsubstantiated, but they're fairly clear. What is unsubstantiated? We just don't agree to agree, okay? That Reagan sent people into the Middle East to try to delay the release of the hostages. It's not proven, or it is proven. I don't know. But the hostages were not released. If the hostages would have been released right before the election, Carter would have probably won. Go back to 2008, something I remember well. We had a giant financial crisis. The Republicans were in power. President Bush. and the ass fell off the donkey. That was an October surprise. John McCain tried to manage it. He failed. We got Barack Obama as the president. It was an October surprise. Now, look at the world we're dealing with today. This port crisis could be a big October surprise. But look at all the other issues. I'm going to tell you what I would do if I was President Biden. I'd cut a peace deal with Putin about October 15th. I'd fly over to the Kremlin and I'd say, hey, let's sit down and work this out, Vladimir. And we'd get the roses and the wine out and everybody'd be friends. Oh, 8 more years to Democrats. That's the power of the incumbent. So, we're into October. We're into a very consequential election. Let me show you something that was an October surprise that really was not anything other than exploiting the politics of the time. Please play 5A. This came out in October of 1964.
From the Library of Congress in Washington, D.C.
One, two, three, 4, 5, 7, 6, 8, 9,
10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0.
These are the stakes. To make a world in which all of God's children can live, or to go into the dark. We must either love each other or we must die.
Vote for President Johnson on November 3rd. The stakes are too high for you to stay home.
This is how one thing turns into its opposite. The Democrat Party was the party of at least some lip service about peace. And President Johnson was contesting with Barry Goldwater, was quite strident and quite seemingly warlike, jingoistic, and they branded him that way, and Johnson won. And, Johnson wasn't a peacenik. I mean, he pursued the war in the Vietnam with great vigor. But that was the kind of thing that happened right before the election that actually moved the needle. And I think that's what could move the needle right now if we had leadership. I'm playing that. I wish that was an ad for republicanism. That this is such a consequential election, and the globalists are playing around with this nuclear war thing. And, if you're opposed to nuclear war, vote Republican. Vote for republicanism. Vote for human well-being. So we ranged over a lot. I ran over. I didn't get to delve into things at the depth I wanted to. I really wanted to talk about this labor issue and union issue because I've thought about it a lot, and I'm going to come back to it, I think, next week. I just asked questions. I didn't give my opinion about it really fully. But I want to talk about it more because the unions are composed of American citizens, and things change. One thing, changes into its opposite. So I don't want anyone to think I'm anti-union. I'm not. I'm pro-work. I'm pro-American manufacturing. I'm pro the well-being of the American people. And how we work that out and how we move forward with that it's all up for grabs now. I mean, we're in a period of intense change. I don't expect things to stay next year the way they were last year. And as a tribute to the American worker on the way out, I'm going to play a piece by Merle Haggard called The Working Man. And I want to thank you for joining with me. It's Thursday. Have a great weekend. Be well. Try to get outside and breathe. Try to get outside and empty out your abdomen by compressing it and just let the air come in. The fall air is so well. Let it be well with you. I'm going to do that. I'm going to get outside and spend some time in nature and try to just bring in that air. That air's got so much healing energy in it. And on that note, I want to wish you well. Have a great weekend. Tanner, you too. And God willing, I look forward to seeing you next Tuesday.
Have a good night, everybody.
always do 2 or 3 for the working man, but this is really the working man song, one called the Working Man Blues. It's a big job getting by with 9 kids and a wife. Yeah, but I've been a working man dang near all my life, and I'll keep on working as long as my 2 hands are fit to use. I'll drink a little beer that evening and sing a little bit of these working man blues. Well, I keep my nose on the grindstone, work hard every day. I might get a little tired on the weekend after I draw my pay, but I go back working. Come Monday morning, I'm right back with the crew. I'll drink a little beer that evening and sing a little bit of this working man blues. Sometimes I think about leaving, do a little bumming around, throw my bills out the window, catch me a train to another town, but I go back working. I gotta buy my kids a brand new pair of shoes. I drink a little beer that evening and sing a little bit of these working man blues. He won't be, he'd be working. As long as his 2 hands are fit to use. He might drink a little beer that evening and sing a little bit of these working man blues. Thank you very much.